Welcome to the lecture number 1, Data Security and Encryption. So this lecture is about introduction of computer and network security. Briefly cover what will be introduced in the course, and then we will move to the basic concepts of computer security. Uh, we will start by the formal definition of computer network security and some examples, and then I will highlight some challenges that the current computer security field is facing. After that, the lecture will present an OSI security architecture, and we will finish the lecture by discussing some typical kinds of security attacks. So there are two kinds of attacks. One is the passive attack and the other one is the active attacks. We will briefly differentiate between those two types. So at the end of this lecture, you should be able to describe the key security requirements of basic security systems. You should be able to describe a standard OSI security architecture that we are going to use in this course. That will be a standard called X800, and you should be able to discuss certain kinds of security attacks such as active attacks and passive attacks, and different ways to overcome them. So before moving forward, let's have some say about the introduction of the course. The information security is a very broad subject, so which cannot be covered in this course. So there are some technical issues. For example, you have to manage the hardware requirements. All the network infrastructure lies in the field of information or network security. You have to deal with number of programming languages that are managed in the different layers of your computer network OSI models, and you have to deal with the number of operating systems that participate in any communication between the networks, and you also have to deal with the number of networks and the protocols, and apart from that there are other issues to manage the security. You should be aware about the management of the information and some legal issues. You must also have been studying these issues in the other course you are taking in this semester, professional practices, that deals a lot of issues regarding the information protection and its sharing with other parties. The course covers two fundamental parts of data security and encryption. The number one is principles, and number two is the application of their principles. The principles we are going to use are called the cryptography techniques. So cryptography will help us to encipher our information into a format that only the desired parties can intercept or read. And then there will be the application of such principles to the network security protocols. There will be certain protocols that allow the secure communication over a medium. So this course is definitely not about how to discover a security breach. For example, if you are hoping to be a computer hacker, then this is definitely not the course you want to take about. And although fundamental security concepts will be covered, however, the real implementation of being a hacker is not a part of this course. This course is about the fundamental concepts behind the major information security principles. You can get a little bored by studying this course because it will be quite laborious, theoretical, but it is important, so you should be well motivated to study the course. Then this course is also about how information security principles can be applied in major network protocols and applications. So you should be able to design, analyze some security aspect of the system after the completion of this course. So let's get started by some example scenarios where the information security is needed and what is an information security. So you can see a number of examples where the information security or data security is required. For example, when you receive some unsolicited messages or email spam messages or some phishing requests from some sender or some unwanted advertisement. So there you need the information security or the secure communication so that no one can send you the email messages or send you the phishing request, or even they send you the phishing request, so you cannot get caught in their intentions. The next one is computer system being hijacked. So if your computer system is hijacked by some downloaded script, or you can say by some pop-ups that create hang that create or hang your system. So so you require a certain kind of security requirements here. Another kind of security breach can be the communication being wiretapped or eavesdropped when someone listens to your communication. Again, here is a security breach. You can get yourself into a fake online transaction. Or another case can happen, for example, someone can send you a message, uh, or someone denies the receipt of your message, as you have sent someone a message and they denied that they have not received it. So again, here is another concept which we will going to discuss in this course. Your online files were missing. Okay. Disputes on the rights of image on online video streams, natural disaster, fire, physical attacks, etc. So the first example is about receiving some spam messages. So, so you definitely need the protection about the illegal or spam messages or phishing schemes or advertisement. Computer system being hijacked, again there is a security breach. You need some secure kind of software, antivirus that blocks the pop-ups or being a system being hanged. Communication being wiretapped, so you definitely need a secure communication channel that is not wiretapped easily. Fake online transaction, you have to get a secure system that stops the any unauthorized person to make transaction on your behalf. This is a particular kind of problem. Your friend denied the receipt of your message. It is handled very carefully in the field of network security, that every message or every communication transferred or conducted should be measurable and should be, you can say, found out uh, from the source to destination. That means no one should be able to deny the message, deny any of the communication they have conducted. Your online files were missing. That is another security concept. That means your online files must be available all the time. Disputes on the rights of an image or online audio or video streams is also another concept of security called integrity or information protection. We will not cover most of these kinds of problems in this course. However, we will have a brief look in this kind of specific problem. Natural disaster, for example, fire, physical attacks, such kind of disaster can happen. So in that moment, your critical services must be available to the all affected parties at the same time. So before moving forward, there are more security related terms that are used interchangeably between data communication, data security, information security, or computer security. So one term is called the computer security that deals with the OS security, operating system security, its infrastructure. It also deals with the software security, being the using the malicious software or uh, uh, avoiding the viruses. It also deals with the access control, that how you allow access to the user to the certain part of system, and denying access to the certain files. This can also be implemented using the firewalls. If you think the network security, this concept will mostly refer to the networking protocols or e-commerce applications. It will deal the user authentication, network access controls, and cloud security. And most importantly, information security deals with the spamming of messages or emails, phishing sites or advertisement, unwanted advertisement, and multimedia security, especially securing your uh, content with watermarking such as images or documents, and information hiding in from one form to another. You must have seen this kind of thing in the digital image processing and digital rights management, that who owns the actual content of the document. So this book or this subject will focus on two broad areas. Number one is cryptographic algorithms, and number two is protocol for networks. So the broad applications can be divided into four subtypes. Uh, these are called main cryptographic algorithms and protocols. Number one is symmetric encryption, which is used to you can say encrypt the any kind of data, messages, or file contents. Number two is asymmetric uh, encryption. It deals to encipher the encryption keys, hash functions, and all kind of digital signatures. So that means if you have to transfer an information or data, so you use an algorithm from this category called symmetric encryption. And if you are transferring some kind of information to exchange that this kind of data, so you have to start by handshaking with two devices, such as digital signature, that how two devices know each other before making communication from this type of algorithm. And there are some data integrity algorithms which allow you to protect the block of data, such as messages from alteration. See? So such algorithms will allow you to secure your application data so that it cannot be altered. And there are some authentication protocols, such as we use commonly logins in when the user logins from one network to another. However, in network security, the automated systems will authenticate one part of the network to the other part of networks. So these schemes based on cryptographic algorithms are designed to authenticate the identity of entities, so that the no entity in the network is gone unnoticed. So these are two main categories, such as cryptographic algorithms, and number two is protocols. So if you have to encrypt a data, you use an symmetric encryption. If you encrypt some information to transfer that data, you use asymmetric encryption. If you have to save the data from alteration, you will use the data integrity algorithm. And if you want to use the communication authentication, you will use any protocol from the authentication protocol section. So before moving forward, you can take 5 minutes break and list some possible security violations you can think of, such as we did in the slide number 6 or 7, that how you feel that the security violations can occur in your real life. For example, I give you one example, that if a user transmit a file from one server to another, the file may contain some sensitive information. So you definitely want to protect it from disclosure. So you want it to be disclosed to only few people who are authorized to view it. And if that information is disclosed to another user who is not authorized to read that file, and that user is able to monitor your transmission and capture the copy of file during the transmission, so your security will be violated. This term is called the violation of the confidentiality. So there are different concepts about the violations, so you can list a few more by pausing here. Okay, this definition is provided by the NIST Computer Security Handbook. So network and internet security is defined formally by, it is the measure to deter, prevent, detect and correct security violations that involve in the transmission of information. So definition is simple. It discourages, and it also prevents, it also detects, and it also corrects. So your information security or network security principles should also discourage information transmission errors or breaches, and it should also have some measures to prevent those attacks on the transmission. And it must, if there is an attack, it must be able to detect that someone is attacking your system or communication, and it must also have a mechanism to correct any security violation that have been conducted by an active or a passive attack. So this leads us to the formal definition of computer security. So computer security is the protection afforded to an automated information system in order to attain an applicable objective of preserving integrity, availability, confidentiality of information systems resources. So this leads us to three common tasks that will be used in detail in this course. Number one is integrity, number two is confidentiality, and number three is availability. It is termed as CIA. CIA stands for confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So the computer security mostly deals with three concepts, such as managing confidentiality of your information and communication mediums. Number two, integrity of the data transferred on communication mediums. And number three, availability of the data on transmission mediums and the availability of the transmission mediums. This also includes the availability of hardware, software, firmware, information data, and all the communication. It also includes the confidentiality of software, information, and data along with the telecommunication. And integrity mostly deals with the information and data, and it may also deal with the integrity of the network, such as some hardware or telecommunication. So before moving forward, you have to understand these three basic concepts: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So we will formally define the confidentiality, integrity, and availability here. Confidentiality is comprised of two parts. Number one is data confidentiality, and number two is the privacy. Data confidentiality, as the name suggests, it assures the private confidential information which is not made available or disclosed to unauthorized individuals. So confidentiality is simple that you should not disclose any information to an unauthorized user in any network or communication. Number two is privacy. Privacy is the personal concept. You will see that it assures the individual control, that your user has the control. If I transfer an information on a network, I should have the control that who is able to view or edit this information, and it also influences what information related to may be collected and stored by the system. So I must have the authority to control. If I upload some image or document on a system, I must have the control that whether it will be stored on the system permanently or whether it will be shared with anyone, such as any third party. So if I maintain these two concepts, I have ensured that my system provides me with the confidentiality. Number two is integrity, which is also composed of two subparts. Number one is data integrity, and number two is system integrity. Data integrity, as the name suggests, assures the information and programs are changed only in the specified and authorized manner. This is very important, that no one should be able to modify the data in an authorized way. Data integrity is violated when someone attacks your system and gains access to the data and modifies the data so that the user may able to see a changed form, deformed form of the data that cannot be some accurate form. Number two is the system integrity. System integrity deals with the how the system performs its function. So system should perform functions in an unimpaired manner. So it should be uh, performing function to its best abilities, and it's free from the deliberate or inadvertent access or unauthorized access to the system. That no one should be able to change the system willingly or unwillingly or unintentionally. So data integrity and system integrity maintained when only authorized users change the data or use the system properly. So if you maintain these two things, you achieve the integrity. However, final thing is the availability. So availability assures that the system works promptly and the service is not denied to authorized users. This is a small concept, however, it covers a large part of the computer network security. So availability states that your system must be always available to the authorized user. So basic violation of availability should be when someone attacks your system and makes it offline so that the user cannot access it. So availability is termed as one of the major requirement in information security. So if you ensure that your system is always available, so your third requirement is also met. So these three terms are often referred as CIA triad. The three concepts are fundamental security objectives both for the data and information and computing devices or services. So this is the CIA also characterizes these three objectives in terms of requirements and definition of loss of security in each category. For example, the loss of confidentiality is unauthorized disclosure of information. So if you allow the unauthorized users to access your system, to access the files or data, you will lose the confidentiality. A loss of integrity means the unauthorized modification or destruction of information. If someone is able to log into your system and modify the information that relates to the integrity of the system. So if someone is able to do that, your integrity is violated. And the loss of availability is the unavailability of the network or the resource or information that is not available. Although CIA is enough to achieve a certain level of information security in the system, however, some further security constraints are also required in some systems to achieve the better security level. For example, looking at this picture, we will see two further concepts. Number one is authenticity, and number two is accountability. So these are also considered two important factors along with the CIA. However, if you achieve the CIA, you must have achieved these two as well. But in some cases, and these are required as an essential part, or you can say auxiliary part of the your computer network security system. So authenticity, as you say, is related to the authentic information, that how much an information is genuine, or you can say how much it is able to be verified or trusted. Let us say how much confidence you have in the validity of the information or communication medium transfer, or the entities in the network such as originator or destination. This also means that you must verify that all the users are the have the valid identity. For example, you must authenticate the systems participating in the network. This can be done in variety of ways. For example, you have seen the two-factor authentication in many networking applications such as banking. Usually it is involving the banking or some critical application. It is also used in Facebook and Google services. So you must verify the authenticity of the information or the participating sources. And you must also authenticate the information that it is arriving from a trusted source. This can be achieved by linking your one account with another. For example, you are linking your banking account with your phone number, or you're linking your email account with the authenticity of a key from generated from the your mobile application. Next term is accountability. You must be very aware that accountability is also very important, not even in the data security but also in the everyday life and most of the system. Accountability deals with the entities to so that they cannot be go. You can say when someone participates in an communication, they should not be able to deny it that they have not participated in the system. So this also deals with the entity to be traced uniquely. For example, authenticity refers the to authentication of the device, and accountability refers to the that device has made the communication, and that device should not be able to deny it. This also supports the non-repudiation. Non-repudiation means that if someone does an action and then claims that he or she has not done it. So accountability maintains a standard that all the actions are traceable and they are recorded, and you should be able to find out the exact cause of any event or any transaction. So it will also detect the attacks on the system, and you should be able to find out the loopholes by the accountability of the your security system, and you must be able to find the responsible party. For example, who from by whom's mistake your system was got breached by an attack, and you must keep record of all the activities so that in the future it can be traced that whoever accessed the system and tried to change it must be traced. All right, next is the security breaching. That means when an attack is made, the security of the system is compromised. So there are different kinds of compromises from ranging from low to high. The triangle suggests that there are many attacks that have the low security breach level and low impact level. And there are few who have the moderate impact level, and there are some high impact level security breaches. So for example, we start with the low one. A low security breach means that the loss can be expected to have a limited adverse effect on the organization, operation, organization, assets, or individual. That means when an attack is made, the most of the impact is have the uh, insignificant value. That means it is not more damaging. For example, if a website is hacked which does not contain the sensitive information of the user, so that will lie in the this category, the security breaches. The moderate impact means the loss will be serious, I mean more than the this one, but less than the severe one. So it can affect the organization operations and the organization assets or individuals. For example, another attacker attacked an information website, and it hacked the data of number of users and modified the data for few users. For example, uh, in this case, the hacker only defaced the website for some time, and the information was not very valuable. Therefore, it was not very significant. However, the information was somewhat useful for the website and the user, and if that information is hacked, the web application master may serious some loss on organization operations, assets, or lose some customers. And there are some kind of high impact level security breaches that could create severe catastrophic adverse effect on organization operations, organization assets, and individuals. For example, someone hacked the security system of a building, a large tower, and that can have the significant effect on the mm, on the operations of organization. For example, if the security gates are turned off and certain people can enter with the ammunition and hurt the organization assets and may cause also life damage. Okay, before moving forward, I will like to discuss the three important concepts I have already discussed. You should be very familiar with them: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Now, you should be able to define these terms on your own. Confidentiality is the non disclosure of the information, the integrity is the non alteration of the data, and availability is the available is the available being available all the time. For example, if you consider these three terms in terms of information, uh, a student grade information is a great asset for the student, and you would want that no one should be able to access such information because it is very highly important to you, and only you and your parents, or if someone you work from or your employee wants to see that information, you should assume that only these parties should be allowed to access such information. So it will have some high level of integrity, confidentiality level. Sorry. While your creditors or currently enrolled courses has some moderate information, and however, so your um, basic information such as your class or your roll number has very low security level. Again, in the terms of integrity, uh, uh, for example, your medical record has the highest integrity level. If someone is able to change your medical record, your medical history, that will have the adverse effect on the your personal and your physical health. Similarly, mm, suppose your employee record, for example, you work from someone that has some medium security level, you lose some information from your work, you can recover it back. And uh, if you have a simple web application where you store your personal information such as CV, and if you lose that, you have very low level of integrity in that system, and you can recover it very easily. At the same time, if we deal with the availability in terms of low, high, and medium, the more critical the system is, the more the level of availability is required. For example, I gave you the example of security system at any building. The more critical the environment, the more secure or important the environment. For example, if you are moving to some government organization, the more important the the more important availability is required of the component. So system that provides the authentication for logging to the or entering to the any application or device or any building, that must be available on the every time. So if some interruption occurs and some people enter in the building or system without being noticed, so it will have some large financial or you can say life-threatening loss on your application or your system. A moderate availability requirement refers to the some public website for the university. If a website remains offline for few hours, it will have moderate impact. I mean, it will have embarrassing effect on the university, but it can be recovered. It will not have some high level consequences. However, if an online website is not available, for example, for looking for scoreboard of cricket, if click info is not available, you should not be worried about much because you can get any alternative, or even if you not get service for some times, you can recover it easily. So let's move to the computer security challenges. Number one challenge is that devil is in the details. It is very easy overall, but if you go into the details, security is not very simple. It requires a lot of technical effort and a lot of background knowledge, that you have to implement to achieve the basic words such as confidentiality, availability, integrity, authenticity, or accountability. So these requirements are quite complex, and understanding them may be involved quite a lot of reasoning and planning. Next one is another challenge is potential attacks on the security features need to be considered. For example, designing any security system, you have to identify the kind of attacks. If you are unable to know the kind of attacks, you will not be able to identify what kind of security you will be needing in your system. So first of all, you have to identify that your system may occur from certain kind of attack. Then you generate the mechanism to overcome such attacks. Number three challenge is procedure used to provide particular service or often counterintuitive. The security mechanism, as I said earlier, is quite complex, and it is not obvious that what you want to secure from the unauthorized access. So it is only when the various types of threats are considered, when you consider the attacks, then only you can decide the what kind of security level you require. So next one is it is necessary to decide where to use various security mechanisms. This is a tricky question. For example, you should be able to study the system in details and decide where exactly at where point your security mechanisms are installed. For example, in for example, which kind of encryption key you need to encipher your information or data, and it can also complicate the task of security management because of the you can say the different kind of layers and the protocols. For example, if you consider the OSI network model, you have to decide at which layer you have to apply the which kind of security mechanism. So it will also make it difficult to decide that where to put such security mechanisms. It also requires constant monitoring. It is not like that you implement a system and then you take the days off and you do not consider about the system. You have to monitor it constantly so that if any attacker is attacking the system or trying to find out the loopholes in the system, you should be constantly updating your security mechanism to eliminate all the weaknesses. So most one of the biggest problem it is that it is an often an afterthought. Most of the applications or you can say more developers do not consider the security unless an attack is conducted on the system. So most of the often it is an afterthought when attacker attacks the system and it breaches some or steals some information from your confidential information, then you look to apply the security to that system. So another certain challenges in application of security mechanism is the security mechanism typically involve more than particular algorithms and protocols. So you should be able to know a variety of algorithms and protocols that can be applied to certain levels of to that can be applied to achieve certain level of security. So again, security is also a battle of fit between preparators and the designers. So whenever an attacker tries to find a loophole in the system, the designer looks to overcome that loophole and provide the more secure system. The another major challenge is the little benefit from the security, because at the start of application development you do not see a huge benefit of the investment that you have placed on the security improvement of the system. It is only perceived when a system failure is occurred, then you consider that your investment was some thing of the value. Otherwise, it is not considered uh, very valuable. Uh, Another major challenge is if you increase too much security, your system will not be very much user friendly. For example, if you create too much of an authentication or encryption in your system will not be able to be used by the common people, and it will require some certain kind of expertise before you can use the system. So next topic was OSI security architecture. So any OSI security architecture is can be used to assess the security needs of an system, and it also helps you to evaluate the various security policies and principles. However, it is very difficult to exactly analyze the key, the whole requirements of any system. However, you can take few guidelines from OSI security architecture that will help you to present that will help you to generate basic security mechanism. So it works in three steps. The number one is it identifies a security attack, and then you have to identify the security mechanism that is used to prevent or cover that attack, and then the number three is security service that will be used to uh, uh, how that mechanism is used to cover that attack. So OSI network security architecture provides a useful overview for many of the concepts, and it focuses on the security attacks, mechanisms, and services. So a security attack is referred as an action that compromises the security of the information owned by an organization. So you must be familiar with that app, that any of the breach or comprise that is made on this information is called a security attack. A security mechanism is a process uh, that is designed to detect that security attack, and it also allows you to prevent from the security attacks and recover from security attacks. A security service is a processing or communication service that enhances the security of the data processing system and the information system transfers on and of an organization. Intended counter security attacks, and they make sure that one or more security mechanisms are to provide the service. A security service is usually maps the security mechanism to the security attack. Before moving forward, there is a formal definition between threats and the attacks. Uh, as much as the term program and the process, these terms are also used interchangeably, and the term threat and attacks are commonly used to more or to mean more or less the same thing. However, the definition is provided here. A threat is a potential violation of security, while an attack is an assault on the system security. That means a threat is a program and a attack is a process. If you are if you remember the definition of a program and a process, you can resemble here from the program to the process. So a threat is a passive thing. That means something bad can happen when there is some capability or action, or even it could breach the security or cause harm. This is a threat or a possible danger that might expose the vulnerability. However, on the other hand, attack is an active thing, and it is an assault on the system security that derives from intelligent threats. That is an intelligent act or a deliberate attempt, especially in the sense of method or technique, to evade security services and violate the security policy of the system. And that means if you identify some method to or there is some weakness to the system, that is called a threat, and if you use that weakness to exploit the other vulnerabilities of the system or violate the security policies, that is called the attack. So there are two kinds of security attacks. Number one is passive attack, and the number two is active attack. So security attacks are a mean of classifying security attacks used both in X800 and RFC 4949. So these are two standards that we will use in this course for managing security of the system. So number one is passive attack. A passive attack uh, attempts to learn or make use of information from system but does not affect the system resources. That means if you listen to the communication of two parties, and you do not change any of the information, or you do not intercept the communication, that will lie in this category. However, uh, an active attack attempts to alter the system, uh, resources, and operation. And if an attack changes the information or resources of your system, that will be classified as an active attack. So, before moving forward, I will like to uh, ask you to take a look at these two pictures. Passive attacks, as you can see, a person, Bob, is communicating with Alice, and using any internet or other communication facility. Attacker Darth listen to the communication without any making any changes to the communication. However, in the active attack, the Bob and Alice are making the same communication. However, Darth is intercepting the communication and then making changes to the communication, or making communication with the other party using the same communication link. All right. For the passive attacks, as you must be now familiar with the definition. These do not change the data. There are two different types of passive attacks. Number one is release of message contents. So it can be easily understood. For example, if you make a telephonic call or an electronic communication, such as video call or email messages, or if you transfer a file containing sensitive information, and in this case we will like to prevent it from learning the contents. We will like to prevent any attacker to learning the contents of such system. So release of messages content uh, will be violated if some third party reads the contents of your messages. However, the third party cannot change the messages that will lie in the passive attack. The second type of passive attack is traffic analysis. For example, if someone does not read the messages, or is not able to read the message, but however, he is able to analyze the traffic flow between two components. and he cannot extract the exact information. However, he can extract the communication pattern, that how often two communication mediums, two communication components are making communication. So they can extract information that two parties communicate frequently and they must be communicating something uh, important. The first thing can be mitigated if you encrypt your messages, or your files in using an encryption key. If so, if someone intercepts your messages, the release of message contents will not be violated, because they will not understand the information due to its encryption level. Uh, Traffic analysis, however, it is very difficult to mitigate such a kind of attack unless your communication transmission mediums are very secure. Uh, these are both are in the nature of eavesdropping on, that means listening to the communication, as this diagram suggests, that you listen to the communication or monitor transmission. In this, the goal of opponent is to obtain information that is being transmitted, uh, just obtaining the information without actually changing it. So this kind of attacks are very difficult to detect. However, they do not involve the alteration of data, as I have discussed it earlier. So we will move to the active attacks. So active attacks involve some kind of modification of the data streams or the creation of the false stream. That means if you are able to modify and data stream, then you can send it to some other communication device by falsifying the information. So these are very difficult to prevent. Remember, these are very difficult to prevent. And the first ones are very difficult to detect, because it is very difficult to detect that who is listening to the communication medium you are using. These kind of attacks are very difficult to prevent because of the wide variety of potential physical, software, and network vulnerabilities. Goal is to detect the attack and recover from the disruption of delays and caused by them. There are four kinds of active attacks. Number one is masquerading. Number two is replay. Number three is modification of messages. And number four is the denial of the services. A masquerade attack takes place when one entity pretends to be a different entity, usually includes one of the other forms of the active attacks. So masquerading means that you use someone else's identity in any communication medium. So that if you are using someone else's identity, you will be definitely using to communicate or transfer some messages. So it will include some kind of other active attacks, uh, which we will discuss shortly. Number two is replay. Replay involves the passive capture of the data unit and its subsequent retransmission to produce unauthorized access. Much like the masquerade, you impersonate yourself and you capture some information using the passive attack, and you retransmit this data to another entity, and you claim that you are the sender or originator of the information, and claim an unauthorized access, which will allow you to allow the use the system. So if you look at the diagram presented in the slide number 17, you will see that the replay takes place using the path 1, 2, and 3. That means attacker intercepts the communication from the originator A, Bob, and it transfer or change some information and then transfer the information to the Alice using the same communication medium. Another kind of attack is modification of the messages. Some portion of legitimate message is altered, or messages are delayed or reordered to produce an unauthorized effect. Similarly, like the replay, if you capture the information and you change some information to produce the unauthorized access. For example, if you transfer the information that you should allow the access to a certain user uh, A into a certain part of the system, and attacker modifies the information and replaces the user A with the user B, the target system will authenticate the information and provide the access to the user B. So the network will be compromised. Another active attack is denial of the service. It will prevent and inhibit the normal use of management of communication facilities. So if an attacker attacks your system and keeps bombarding your system with the number of requests so that the no uh, legal user of your system is able to access, because it will be overloaded by the illegal request by the third party or a attacker. So let's conclude it here. Active and passive attacks uh, both are difficult to manage. However, active attacks present the opposite characteristics of a passive attack. Passive attacks are difficult to detect and measure because the attacker is not disrupting any of the communication. He is just eavesdropping or listening to the communication. On the other hand, it is quite difficult to prevent the active attacks because it has a wide range of vulnerabilities, it is very difficult to apply the protection level at each layer of your network. So in this medium, it is in this attack, the goal is to detect active attacks and recover from any problems. For example, if denial of service is occurred, your system administrator must be able to detect the attack, and he must be able to recover from the denial of the service and allow the legal users to access the system by restoring it to its previous state. So that is the end of lecture number 1. In this lecture, we have covered some computer security concepts. We started with some formal definitions, and then we moved to the challenges that are posed by the current security systems and their requirements. We overview an OSI security architecture that had three parts: the network attack, the security mechanism, and the security service that was provided to overcome that attack. And then we covered two kinds of attacks: active attacks and the passive attacks. So if you want to study more about the concept covered in the lecture number 1, you can read chapter 1, Cryptography, Network Security, Principles and Practices, 7th edition by William Starling. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, we can conduct an question and answer session by tomorrow. Thank you very much.